Hello, welcome back to my channel, or if you're new here, welcome. I'm Carrie. I'm a 29-year-old vegan living in Bristol in the UK. I've been vegan for about 8.5 years now, and I live with my fiance who is not vegan, but he does eat vegan at home with me. And I think a special shout out this week, there are lots of you who have subscribed since my last video. So a big welcome to those who have joined us from the Vegan Food and Living article that they did on my £21 Aldi challenge video. It's so lovely to have you here. I'm so glad you found me. This week I am actually doing a bit of a different video. I haven't specifically been grocery shopping, which I know is unusual, but for those of you who are long-time viewers, you might remember a few weeks ago, or maybe months ago, a month and a half, something like that, we went to Heron Foods and got 10 packs of tofu. Now we have been working our way through it and have them in the freezer, but honestly, they were taking up quite a bit of freezer space. So I decided this week I was going to tackle that and see how many different ways I could use tofu. So this week I have used tofu in 5 different ways, 5 different recipes. So I'm going to start off by showing you 2 which require 0 cooking and minimal prep time. One of them literally 2 minutes prep, the other less than 10. So hopefully you'll enjoy those. And then I've got 3 meals that I also made with the tofu, which involved cooking, obviously. So I hope you enjoy, and without further ado, let's see what I made. First thing that I'm going to make is this tofu feta, or feta-style tofu. So I'm just going to start with making the marinade. So I took a tablespoon of nutritional yeast and then a teaspoon of Italian herbs. And this actually made me run out of Italian herbs, so not quite a teaspoon. A teaspoon of salt, but again, this actually looked like a lot of salt, so I did not fill the whole teaspoon with this. And then I took some garlic, and this was half a teaspoon's worth before popping it in there. And then I just gave it a mix before adding the wet ingredients. So firstly, I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of olive oil to the mixture before I add 1 tablespoon of apple cider vinegar. This was actually surprisingly cheap from Morrison's. I can't remember, but it was definitely less than £1.10. So I'm just going to add that in there. I'm sure you can use rice wine vinegar or other things if you don't have that. Next is some white miso, and this is going to be a teaspoon of the miso. And then I'm adding in some lemon juice as well, and I believe that this was also a teaspoon. Yes, it was. So once that's all in there, then I've just got to add some water, and this was 2 tablespoons of warm water. And then I am going to mix it all together. Make sure it's well combined and all of the miso is completely dissolved, because that is very strong if you've ever had miso without it being dissolved in anything. And then, as you can see, I cut my tofu up into chunks and then just gave it a good stir and mix around to make sure everything was combined. The recipe said to use a shallow dish, which is why it's in one like this. This has been sitting probably for about 16 to 18 hours now. Just tried it. It's so tasty. Probably not really like a feta alternative you get in the supermarket, because obviously that's quite creamy and the tofu isn't that creamy, but oh my goodness, like it's delicious. So even if it's not that realistic, it is. I would highly recommend this recipe. It's divine and so quick. And then I ate it in a chickpea and tomato salad like this. Okay, this is going to be the simplest recipe I show you by far in this video, and all I'm going to be doing is making some egg and mayo filling for a sandwich. So I obviously have my tofu, and then for seasonings and sauce I have got vegan mayo, which is absolutely key. You actually can make mayo with tofu as well, which I've done before for a potato salad, which was really good, but I feel like that would be tofu overload if I had egg mayo tofu made out of tofu and tofu. So yeah, I've just got the Hellmann's vegan mayo, and then I have got some black pepper, Dijon mustard, parsley, black salt. This is key to make it taste eggy, and then some nutritional yeast as well. I'm also going to add a bit of turmeric for flavour, but I'll add that in at the end. Okay, I'm going to add it to a Tupperware container just so that I don't have to use it all at once. So the first thing I'm going to do is just take some tofu and crumble it in. Now, the texture that my tofu has is one that has been frozen and then thawed. And that is because we got so much tofu from Heron Foods maybe like a month and a half ago now, 2 months ago, and they were 79p each. So we've had tons in our freezer. We've obviously been kind of like using it as and when, but this video is just such a good opportunity for me to go through some of it and have it in like different ways. Now, I haven't fully pressed this, but I don't mind it being a bit watery for the purposes of an egg mayo, to be honest. I think that's probably like quite good. So I'm just gonna and it's crumbled quite a bit without my needing to do much, which is ideal really. So I think that's probably a good amount for what I want it for. So I've got a fork so that I can stir it. So the first thing I'm going to add is some black pepper. Just measure with your heart with how much you want in there. And then the black salt, like I said, this is absolutely key. So a good amount of this. That looks good. I want to probably at this point add in the mayo. Okay, that looks like to be a good amount. And then just do half a teaspoon of this Dijon mustard because it is very strong. Okay, half a teaspoon of this Dijon mustard. It is very strong Dijon, so less is more with it really. I think maybe even half a teaspoon in here would be ideal. Okay, so I'm going to add the parsley and nutritional yeast once I've given this a stir around. So that's what I'm going to do. So it smells very eggy, but it doesn't look it yet. So to counteract that, I'm just going to add in some turmeric. Turmeric's also so good for you, obviously. So any way that you can get a bit of turmeric into your diet is good, I think. We'll just try with that little bit, see how we get on. Yeah, that's not done too much. I'm going to need a little bit more than that. Oh, okay, a lot. At this point, I am going to add in some nutritional yeast. This will just help thicken it up a little bit as well. Add in some parsley. Obviously, you could add some cress or chives maybe, but parsley is what I have on hand, so that's what we're going to be using. I think that's good. So I'm just going to add that to a roll and have it as my lunch. So I've got my roll. Now I'm having this straight away, but if you let it sit in the fridge, then it will thicken up as well. So it's probably slightly runnier than is optimum right now, but it's lunchtime and I'm hungry. So I've just done a good amount, and then I've probably got one more portion to put in the fridge. Final product, you could put some more turmeric in if you want it to be a bit yellower, because it does still look quite white, but delicious. Just wanted to show, if you're a bit more patient than I was for that lunch, then you'll see that it turns like a bit more of a yellowy colour. Sat in the fridge, so I'd recommend letting it sit for a few hours and not eating straight away. Okay, let's get on to the cooking. So I have got some tofu that I'm crumbling up here because I'm going to be making a ramen, and I'm going to make this into kind of a minced beef situation, but tofu obviously. So I'm just adding some garlic granules, some paprika, some black pepper, some liquid seasoning, which is vegetable seasoning, the last of my liquid smoke, and some Henderson's relish, all to give it a meaty flavour, along with a few sprays of the soy sauce. And then what I'm doing is adding some sesame oil to this pan, along with some chili flakes. If you've got chili oil, then you could add that along with some sesame oil, but I don't, so I didn't. And then I am going to give that a swirl around and let it get fragrant. And then I'm just adding some peanut butter here, so 2 teaspoons of peanut butter along with some water from the kettle, and I just eyeballed that along with a little bit of soy sauce, and then I'm giving that a good stir before I add in some oat milk, and this is making the broth. So then to my wok, I added some sesame oil, and then I add in my crumbled tofu, and I'm going to cook this on a medium-high heat for quite a while to get it nice and crispy. And then to my broth, once that's bubbling away, I added in some shredded spring greens because this is what I had in my freezer. But if you do have bok choy, then obviously a bit more authentic, and you can use that if you like. But the spring greens actually worked really well in this. So this is what the tofu looks like as it's cooking up and getting a little bit crispy, and then I put this down to a bit of a lower heat once it was at quite a crisp level. And then to my broth, once that's been simmering for a while, I add in my instant noodles here. These are pre-cooked ones. They're just medium noodles, not specifically ramen noodles. And then I'm going to add some more boiling water to my broth, and I'm going to break down the noodles so it's not in a packet shape, and give that a stir before adding in a little bit more chili. And I just did taste here and added in some more garlic as well. And this is how it turned out. It was so delicious, and I think it looks really good as well. Apologies for interrupting. I will let you get back to the tofu recipes in just a second, but I wanted to bring some attention to my fiance's Etsy page. I believe that some of you may have visited before and left a couple of comments because I've had a link in my description of my videos for a little while now to his Etsy shop, but he's actually just done a refresh of his shop and uploaded lots more. He is selling a variety of digital download artwork, including some plant-based theme prints, as well as some city and landscape wall art. He's actually designed so much of what is on display in our home, so I'm so proud and excited for him to be sharing his digital artwork with others so that they can enjoy it in their homes too. Obviously, this is not sponsored. I'm simply a proud fiance. He has not given me any money to say this. But he has actually created a discount code for my subscribers, which is amazing. So if you wanted to get 20% off of your entire order, if you have a look and decide you do like some of the prints, then the code to do this is the Frugal Vegan UK. I'll leave a link to his Etsy store and the discount code in the description below. So I'd love it if you check it out. Okay, let's get back to the tofu recipes. Okay, so making shakshuka, the first thing I've done is get the tofu out of the packet and drain it. And then I've got a tea towel wrapped around it and lots of cookbooks on top just to press it. Obviously, if you've got a tofu press, use that. I don't. I really should get one because my old housemate used to have one and let me borrow it, and it was so good. Like, it just made the tofu so firm, but this also works. So just put heavy stuff on top of it. And with shakshuka, I'm just serving it with toast. So I've got my pieces of bread ready to go down and be toasted when the time comes. I've cut the tofu into these slices, and now I'm just going to season them with some salt, pepper, garlic, the salt being black salt, of course, the eggy flavoured one, and a little bit of nutritional yeast, and then I will be frying them. Here we go, just frying up now. And these are the seasonings that I used for them. So this is what you want your tofu to look like, nice and crispy. And then I'm just going to set that aside to make the kind of tomato sauce. Okay, so I have got the tomatoes bubbling, and then I've got paprika, cumin, cayenne, garlic, and parsley to add to it. Then what you want to do is add your tofu to the tomato mix and then just let it simmer like this for as long as it takes on the tomato to get nice and thick. So this is how you want to get it really. So you've got it nice and thick. So I've turned the heat off and I'm just going to let it stand while I toast my bread. This is what it ends up looking like. I've probably overdone the toast a bit, but as in there's too much of it. But yeah, there's tofu and the tomato sauce and it's going to taste delicious. Just got to say, this is absolutely delicious. If you've never tried shakshuka, I would really recommend. It is divine. Next up, we are making a stir fry, so a classic tofu recipe. So the first thing I'm going to do is cut this tofu into slices and then into triangles. Now I'm just going to season the tofu, so I add some squirts of vegetable oil before adding some garlic powder, and making sure it's all nicely coated on both sides, along with some black pepper, and then I added some salt as well. And then I am also just prepping this onion by dicing and cutting this up, dicing and slicing, I suppose, because I'm going to be frying this along with some mixed peppers, which I've got in the freezer already cut up, to add to the sweet and sour sauce. I've added the seasoned tofu to a pan and we are having Singapore style noodles with it, which we just had in the freezer. So I added that to a wok with some water to help defrost and start cooking them. And then we had a stir fry packet in the freezer too. So I added that to the noodles along with some soy sauce and seasonings. And then in the other pan, once I'd done the tofu and put that to the side, I added some onion and some peppers and let those fry up before adding in the sweet and sour sauce. And then I added in the tofu once that was nice and bubbling. And then this is what it looks like all plated up. This was delicious, and having the tofu pre-frozen means that it takes up so much more flavour, so I'd really recommend doing it that way. That is everything I made this week. I think the ramen definitely sits at number one for me. I've never used tofu in that way. I've had it at ramen restaurants where they've used tofu as a mince substitute in, like, I think sometimes it's called dan dan noodles, sometimes tan tan men. Mine was not authentic because the broth I just made with what I had in, and I just love a peanut broth, so I'm pretty much always going to add peanut butter to my ramen and noodle recipes because I just think it's the yummiest thing ever. Actually, it turned out super tasty. The tofu was delicious and was time consuming only in the prep. The actual cooking was simple and quick, so I would definitely make that one again. The tofu stir fry sort of noodles and then stir fry sweet and sour tofu is something that I would make quite regularly. Obviously very easy, and having frozen the tofu first and then added it to the sauce and fried it, it just absorbs the sauce so much more. So I would really recommend, for texture purposes, if you're going to do a dish like that, then having it frozen is a good idea. And in the same vein, the same to be said for the vegan feta as well, because it really absorbed the feta marinade so well, and I will definitely be making that again. In fact, to be honest, there isn't anything that I wouldn't make again. I did take a little clip of the vegan egg mayo once it had sat in the fridge, so that's my takeaway as well, is that it looks more yellow and sort of egg-like once you leave it to sit, and I was just being super impatient that day and wanted my lunch right then. But I would recommend leaving it sit in the fridge for a bit longer, and you're going to get like a bit more depth of flavor, but also it's going to look a bit more like what you're trying to replicate. The shakshuka, again, I'm not sure how authentic my shakshuka was. A couple of recipes online, I suppose. I looked at a few and took inspiration. I've had tofu shakshuka in restaurants before and really enjoyed it, so that's where the idea came from. And that was absolutely delicious, and it's such a filling breakfast as well. You're getting quite a lot of protein in there, so yeah, I'd really recommend it. There are obviously so many different ways that you can use tofu. I didn't do a scrambled tofu in this video, but you have seen me do those quite a lot, I think, over the last kind of 5 months of having this channel. So I thought I wanted to show you something new. And again, you can make so many different sauces with tofu as well. So the possibilities are endless, and I only used extra firm tofu in this video as well, but you've obviously got different types of tofu too. So I think I could probably do about 4 or 5 of these videos and still not run out of ideas. So tofu is king is what I'm trying to say, and you get lots of lovely calcium from tofu as well as protein, so it is a win-win. Now, I haven't mentioned before, it's just been in my bio, but I am actually trying to use my Instagram for my frugal adventures a little bit more. So if you like this video, as well as the usual thumbs up, subscribe, please leave a comment. I'd love it if you'd also check out my Instagram account. It's at Frugal Vegan UK, and I'm trying to post at least 1 story a day on there and up my grid posts as well. Obviously, this is just a hobby for me, and I have a full-time job and other things outside of that as well. But I am really trying to up my presence on there, so I would love it if you joined me there as well. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next week. Bye.